All right, let's jump right in. We're going to explore a really powerful idea today, one that could completely change how you think about your own mental health. Seriously, it challenges pretty much everything we've been told about why we feel the way we do.
So let's just start with this question. What if depression isn't just some malfunction, a glitch in your brain chemistry? What if it's actually a message, a signal that's trying to tell you something really important? That's the core idea we're going to unpack. And this whole idea, this whole journey, it really kicks off with a personal mystery. For the author of the book we're looking at, Johann Hari, it was this 13 years search for answers, and it all started with a pain he just couldn't shake.
So his whole search was really driven by two big, nagging questions. First, on a huge scale, he was asking, why are so many people in the Western world getting more depressed and anxious? But then it was also super personal. He was thinking, I've been on antidepressants for 13 years. Why do I still feel this way? Why am I still in so much pain?
And the story he got from his doctor is probably one you've heard before, right? The doctor basically told him, look, some people just naturally get a chemical imbalance in their heads, and you're clearly one of them. And that's it. It's this neat, simple, purely biological story we're all told. But here's the thing. After more than a decade, that story just wasn't adding up anymore. The pain was still there. So he decided, okay, I need to find the real answers. And he went on this incredible 40,000-mile journey, crisscrossing the globe to talk to the world's leading experts on depression and anxiety.
And what he found on that journey, well, it took him way beyond that simple story of a chemical imbalance. He started to uncover the real and honestly often surprising reasons for why we're all in so much pain.
So this is kind of the big reveal. The experts he talked to, they've found scientific evidence for 9 different causes of depression and anxiety. But get this, only 2 of them are purely biological. The other 7, they're environmental and psychological. In other words, they're about how we're living our lives.
Okay, let's think about it like this. We all know we have physical needs, right? Food, water, shelter. Pretty obvious. If you don't get those, you get sick. Well, it turns out we have psychological needs that are just as real. We need to feel like we belong. We need to feel that our lives have meaning. We need to feel seen and valued by other people. We need to feel like we have a future that makes sense. And here's the problem. Our modern world, for all its amazing things, is getting really bad at meeting these basic human needs.
And this whole idea really clicked into place for him when he heard this one incredible story from a psychiatrist in Cambodia. It's a story about a farmer and a cow, and it really changes how you look at everything.
So the story goes like this. There's this farmer in Cambodia, and one day he's out in the fields, steps on a landmine, and loses his leg. And after that, he becomes deeply depressed. I mean, totally understandably, right? He can't work anymore, he can't even get out of bed. He just cries all day long.
But when the local doctors came to visit him, they didn't just see a brain with a chemical problem. They sat with him, they listened to him, and they realized, of course this man is in pain. It makes total sense. It wasn't some random glitch. His depression was a perfectly logical response to what had happened to him.
So what did they do? They didn't just write him a prescription for pills. Their prescription was a cow. No, seriously. The people in his community got together, they pulled their money, and they bought him a cow. So now he could become a dairy farmer. He had a new way to live, a new way to support his family, a new purpose.
And this is the punchline, the part that just changes everything. The doctor who told this story said, so you see, that cow, that was his antidepressant. And just think about that for a second. An antidepressant isn't just a pill. It's anything that actually solves the problem that's causing the pain in the first place.
Okay, so this idea leads us directly to one of those deep causes of depression: connection. Or more accurately, the lack of connection. It's a wild thought, but we are literally the first humans in all of history to have voluntarily disbanded our tribes. We've just let them fall apart, and it is having a devastating effect on us.
And this isn't just some vague feeling. The numbers are absolutely shocking. A recent study found that 39% of Americans said they feel they are no longer close to anyone. 39%. Let that sink in. We're tribal animals, you know? We are hardwired for connection, but we're living through an epidemic of loneliness.
So what's the antidote? Well, there's this amazing idea starting to take hold called social prescribing. Here's a real example. In East London, a doctor had a patient with crippling anxiety. Instead of just more pills, he prescribed her to join a group.
This group got together and decided to fix up a neglected patch of land and turn it into a community garden. They started working together, digging in the dirt, and they became a tribe. They started to look out for each other, and one of them said it perfectly. As the garden began to bloom, we began to bloom. That's what connection as a cure looks like.
All right, the next deep cause is a little bit more abstract, but it's just as important. It's about our values. And there's this fantastic analogy for it. Just like we can eat junk food, we can also live by junk values. Our culture has basically trained us to look for happiness in all the wrong places.
And the comparison is really direct. We all know that junk food tastes good for a minute, but it doesn't have the nutrients we need, and in the long run, it makes us physically sick. Well, it's the exact same with junk values. The idea that life is just about buying stuff, about status, about how you look to other people, that stuff doesn't meet our real psychological needs. And just like junk food, it's making us sick, but emotionally.
Professor Tim Kasser, who studied this stuff for decades, put it so well. He said, "We live in a machine that is designed to get us to neglect what is important about life." And think about it, right? Advertising, social media, it's like a constant storm of messages all screaming at us to want things that won't actually make us happy.
Okay, so when you put all of this together, it leads to this massive shift in how we think. It means we have to completely reframe our understanding of what depression and anxiety even are.
See, the old story, the one most of us are still told, is that depression is a malfunction. It's a glitch in the system, a wiring problem in your brain. And what that story is really saying, without saying it, is that your pain is meaningless. It's just an error, a bug in your code.
But what if it's not that at all? What if depression is a signal? This new way of thinking sees depression as a form of grief. Grief for the fact that our deep psychological needs aren't being met. It's a message from your mind and your body basically screaming that something is fundamentally wrong with how you're living and that you need to pay attention. So ultimately, if we want to find the real solutions, and they are all around us, they're the cows from the story, the very first step is that we have to stop insulting these signals. We have to stop treating our pain like it's a malfunction or a personal weakness. Instead, we have to start listening, really truly listening to what our pain is telling us.
Because honoring that pain, respecting it as a messenger, that's the real first step. So I'll leave you with this one final question to think about for yourself. What are your signals trying to tell you?